developed in the Academy as a follow-on of the Head of Space Agency Summit. And we have here today Dr. Nair, the President of the International Academy of Astronautics, Dr. Nair. Enrico Saggese, the President of the Italian Space Agency. Marius Johan Piso, the President of the Romanian Space Agency. And Ray Johnson, the CTO of Lockheed Martin Corporation. And Lockheed Martin was the main sponsor of the Head of Space Agency Summit last November. In November last year, on the framework of 50th anniversary celebration of the Academy, we had meetings in 14 countries, and it culminated with Head of Space Agency Summit. And we have put together 30 Head of Space Agencies, and during 1 year preparation, we have developed a 2-page declaration, IAA declaration. And this declaration has been welcomed by the Head of Space Agency. So we propose that we have a recap, a 9-minute recap of what happened in Washington, and then we move to the follow-on discussion. And we will tell you that we have already started consultation of our members in the Academy, and this will be part of the input for the discussion. So let's start with what happened in Washington, D.C. in November.
Ladies and gentlemen, evidently this time is summit time. Last week we had the G20 summit in Seoul. Over the weekend it was the APEC summit in Yokohama, and now it's the summit of the heads of space agencies in Washington. May I please ask the heads of agencies to come to the floor.
I note with satisfaction that the activities sponsored by the Academy have, in recent years, multiplied and spread to all regions of the globe, providing a reach of the Academy and of astronautics to at least 72 countries. This is a credit and a tribute to the current President and Board of Trustees and all those that have gone before them, and I offer you my congratulations, and many of you are in the room today. I also note with satisfaction the declaration that has been prepared by the IAA President and Secretary General, working through the distinguished members of the Academy.
I would like to thank the International Academy of Astronautics and its staff for their initiative and effort to organize this event, and also for giving the Czech Space Office an opportunity to participate in it.
Thank you very much, Professor Kroll. I would like first to thank the International Academy of Astronautics for organizing this, but it's also a good opportunity to reflect on what we can do more and together for making the future on planet Earth possible.
As IAA Vice President, I would like to say that I greatly appreciate the capability of IAA to propose independent studies on space to the international community. And as Vice President, I welcome the IAA Summit Declaration that presents access for future of space cooperation.
It is a clear statement of the increased significance of IAA for space cooperation. IAA is right now a sound catalyst for international cooperation, and I am personally committed to IAA.
It is my honor to partake in this historic event, Head of Space Agency Summit, and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the International Academy of Astronautics. My sincere gratitude to the IAA Steering Committee and for all those who made this summit a success.
I would like to simply illustrate the Italian Earth observation strategy and vision. Italy is a worldwide leader in the realization of management of the only dual-use Earth observational system in X-band, dedicated to risk prevention and management, and to the protection of natural resources.
The symposium on the climate change, which was one of our focuses in the declaration,
was held in Nagoya, Japan in August, and many concerned people participated in the event. I was glad to hear that active discussions were made under the theme of what can we do for our Mother Earth.
Here in the United States, NASA is very fortunate to have recently received a new authorization act from the Congress, signed by the President, that outlines our agency's plans for the future. With this bipartisan legislation, we now await NASA's funding appropriations for this fiscal year. Regardless of the final outcome of that process, I believe we are now well positioned and strongly encouraged to continue our significant efforts to establish global partnerships in a number of different areas.
With the continued support of the President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, there have been also conducted biotechnological experiments which resulted in gaining valuable forms of plants. These unique results started the beginning of the development of new trend in Kazakhstan. Is biotechnology.
In the past 50 years have been years of faith.
Apparently we have a technical problem, but I suggest that you have probably seen not the 30 but many of the major head of agencies. So why don't we ask now Dr. Nair to give his view on why we did the summit and what is the goal.
Professor Enrico Sagasti, Dr. Mark John Biasot, Mr. Ray Johnson, Mr. John Michel Contant, distinguished members of the delegations, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. Well, I'm sorry that we couldn't complete that video that would have given a total picture of what transpired in Washington DC last November. As you are aware that we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Academy, and we thought it's a good idea that we spread our base for operation much wider. We have seen that the various countries have taken lead in space exploration on their own and jointly, and there are classic examples of the achievements, starting from the man landing on the moon to the recent robotic exploration of the moon and the Mars and so on. We thought it's a good idea that the space agencies come together, they share their global vision and then project what needs to be done for the future. Of course, in all this, we have kept in mind the space is the common property of the humankind, and it has to be utilized for enriching the quality of the human beings. So this motto was behind us when we have the space agencies who met at Washington DC. Of course, starting from the tools for space exploration to application, the arena is very vast. So it is humanly impossible to cover such an entire area in a session which lasts for a day. So we try to focus our attention to few of the pressing problems. We have seen that climate change and environment is of utmost concern, and then the disaster management is another area where I think everybody wants something needs to be done. Human space exploration become inevitable for us to survive in the future. And then for better understanding of the planets and stellar system, we have to have a robotic exploration. So we have activated study groups and regional workshops covering these topics, and the results of that has been presented during this summit. And I'm extremely pleased to say that all the chiefs of space agencies have welcomed the summit declaration, which contained nearly 30 action items. Of course, again, to see that all these 30 action items are pursued with equal priority is next to impossible. So the Academy thought that it is appropriate that we circulate these recommendations to the academicians and the space agencies and other related organizations, so that we have the inputs from them as to which areas need to be prioritized and which needs the immediate attention. So from that point of view, we have already circulated this document to almost all the concerned people, and we expect in the course of next couple of months, we have inputs from all such agencies, and we will be able to really call out what is the essentials which needs to be pursued. So this is our immediate task. Of course, as you know that today, the space exploration has become extremely complex, highly demanding in terms of technology and also in terms of resource, both in terms of the human resource as well as the monetary resources. With the economic recession taking place at many parts of the globe, the funding towards the space gets affected, and that's really a negative factor which will hamper the progress in this area. So in such a context, it is appropriate that we put together our ideas and resources so that we can focus on themes which are absolutely essential and make it happen within the shortest possible time and make it affordable to the countries. Once the systems are in place, definitely one can spread out, and this knowledge what we gain or the information which we collect can be disseminated to the needy people. You have seen this conference taking place in the South Africa. The need for the African region is a very highly vast country which is in the process of development. The developing country needs are much different from what is there in the developed countries. Similarly, many regions in South America and many of the countries which have initiated their space program, they need hand-holding. In fact, I am happy to say that many of our professional organizations who are part of this Congress, especially the IAF, ISL and IAA, we are taking special care to see that we spread our activities right across the globe. In fact, I am proud to say that IAA has had almost 30 events in the last year in different parts of the globe, and nearly attracting more than 4,000 participants. So that way we ensure that the knowledge and wisdom what we gain through the academic activity is disseminated to the needy. Now the next step in this, we expect that based on the inputs from various agencies, we will be able to really come out with a sharply focused themes. These themes will be supplemented with regional workshops, conferences, and also the thematic presentation in annual events like this. Again, institute studies in some of the advanced fields where a lot of imagination and ideas has to get together. We have to put together the wisdom of the pioneers and the energy of the younger generation to achieve such a goal. So we intend to do this in the coming months, and with that we will be able to come out with the concrete proposals which can be presented to the space agencies, and we will act as a catalyst in bringing together the space agencies and making the work together for the prosperity of the humankind. Thank you.
The scope of the agencies. So let me resume what is the problem, what are the problems that we are facing as agencies. The first point is we have to satisfy the request of data from scientists. So our scientists are looking forward to having more and more data in order to have really the possibility to test their hypotheses, technical hypotheses, scientific hypotheses. So they are pushing hard in order to get this data. The second major point is the fact that we have to operate for the technology advancement of our industry. So we have, everybody knows, a very competitive world. So we have to help in national industries in such a way they reach a kind of level of quality, a level of technology, which would allow them then to use this technology for commercial purposes. So we have more or less to cooperate in some ways with other agencies, but we have knowing that there is a competition behind us. So there is a kind, if I can resume it, a competition for cooperation. So it's quite an hard task. And the last point is that we have to cope with the amount of money that we receive. And it's worth saying what is the situation of crisis now in the world. But let me just recall three numbers. If we are thinking in terms of a satellite for robotic exploration, we will have to spend something in between $1 and $2 billion. The space station, in effect, has costed something in the region of $100 billion. If, as everybody is saying, starting from the President of the United States, so quite important, that we have to go to Mars, nevertheless we have to spend something in the region of $500 billion. Which means, in terms of the world gross product, something like 1,000 of it, of the yearly product of the world, for 10 years. So you understand that it's something that is dramatically ample, and it's so dramatic that the objective has to be the objective of a world cooperation. So nobody can really figure out these numbers in a context which does not include everybody in the world. So the effect of thinking in these terms has led many of us to speak in terms of, also in other fields of cooperation in many fields, like the weather, the climate, the remote sensing of the earth, and so on, in cooperation which is a kind of new terms. So the virtual constellation, for example, is a new term which was used recently in the idea that all the countries can operate singularly, but have to launch satellites, have to have their own systems which allow them to cooperate with all other nations. So we have the virtual constellation with the possibility then to exchange data. And then again, the cooperation leads us to being motivated to utilize these means in a common way. So in these years, for example, last year, in effect, I was the president of CEOS. So the number of participating agencies and entities in this vast group is quite large. In CEOS we have now roughly 29 agencies and other 21 entities supporting it. So this means that we have to work hard in confronting and in speaking with head of agencies. So the importance of the summit is really the possibility to pass from a bilateral, or in some cases multilateral, coordination like in the European Space Agency, but with many bilateral speeches to a confrontation with everybody, all on the same plane. So what was important then, the summit was the possibility for IAA to vehiculate common wishes in front of a large audience. So the ideas should not be limited to the head of agencies, but should be accepted by large audiences of all the stakeholders of space activities. The second major problem is always to generate enthusiasm for particular activities. So apart from simplify the contacts, what is important to understand is that nevertheless there are leader countries. If we speak about human exploration, the leader country is the United States, and we have to generate enthusiasm in order to push them in a certain direction. So it is important then that this feeling, this common feeling, be perceived in a reciprocal situation also by the head of agencies. So we can pass messages, but we receive from you, from all the stakeholders, important messages. So the future is always in favor of this summit. Maybe in the future we will confront in terms of specific teams. So there is the need to call a team and have a confrontation. So if I can then conclude the speech, the summit itself and IAA were quite important to assess what we, everybody of us, feel, but should be stressed, the fact that the space is a common objective and not the objective of a single nation. Thank you very much.
So the second space agency that would be invited to report today is the Romanian Space Agency. And Dr. Pizzo was also at the summit. And can you give us a little perspective on your vision?
Thank you, Jean-Michel, distinguished President of the IAF, distinguished President of the IAA, distinguished guests, delegates and colleagues. That forum made me think more about cooperation. You see, the space environment changed, and in particular in the last decade. From the beginning, space was devoted more or less to military purposes and to science. Then space applications as telecommunications, Earth observation, global positioning, they become a reality. Then space was driven by commercial reasons. Nevertheless, in the last decade, space is also driven by security purposes. And when I'm speaking about security, I'm not speaking about military, I'm speaking about the new threats against our civilization. This means vertical threats, starting from earth diseases, as drought, as other specific terrestrial issues that might be managed by, that might be eradicated by a good management of the resources. And also I'm thinking of the possible cosmic threats, as we can see, as space weather issues, but also issues related to planetary defenses, possible asteroid collisions. So space become filled with a very wide area of topics, and each space agency, even if it was the largest or a new one, realized that there are several issues that cannot be solved in other ways than wide international cooperation. This means global cooperation. That forum might provide such permanent, let's say, body in which the space agency's leaders might take decision. There is a need of global decision at that level, and in the same time connected with the necessity to spend in an appropriate way the planetary resources. Most of the space missions are done today in wide international cooperation. I would also like to draw your attention to an example of cooperation that we are considering, the European Space Agency, in which a number of 19 countries today are sharing resources for a common purpose. But in the same time, those countries are keeping, most of them, their national programs. And this is a very good balance between, let's say, international needs. I cannot say global, but international needs, visa, and each country's own ambitions and program and way to develop. I would like to thank you for your attention.
Dr. Johnson, I would like, in addition to your vision as an industry leader and main sponsor of the summit, I would like also you to comment the poll. We have made an investigation, a survey among our members. It's only a preliminary result, but you have the data, so maybe you could also add this in your report.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just let you know how exciting it was for those of you who did not get a chance to take part in the meeting of the 30 heads of space agencies in Washington. It was a really exciting event. In fact, as you all know, it was the first of its kind. And so if you think about it from the industry perspective, the way we look at this is, in this conference, of course, has highlighted this. Space has been important. But space continues to be important, and it may be even growing in importance, because many of the most challenging problems that the planet faces, part of the solution to those problems lies in space, yet to be unexplored areas, in fact. We also know, as was highlighted when you think about the situation of the global economy, no nation, not even the United States, is able to go it alone in space. And so the need for collaboration and cooperation has never been greater, and the ability to collaborate and cooperate on these problems of global concern is a great opportunity. Also, because of this uncertain future, if you think about the academy and the role that they may play, you can think about a systems engineering approach and solution to many of these problems. And in that systems engineering approach, there will be specialists in different areas. And you can think about bringing those specialists together, both at the national and at the technical level. And this academy has the ability and the knowledge to bring those various components of that systems engineering solution together in a way that makes sense, in a way that holds ground technically, as well as from a agency perspective for the various nations. From an industry point of view, as we pointed out, the global economy challenges have put a lot of pressure on budgets across the agencies. So really, what is it that industry looks for? Industry looks for stability. Industry looks for stability in policies. They look for stability in strategy. And they look for stability in budgets. And through that stability comes programs that run more smoothly, programs that stay on budget, and programs that execute and achieve their goals. And so what I'm going to go over in a minute is to describe the initial findings of the actions that came out of the 4 topical areas from the summit. It's very important that after we bring together these 30 heads of space agencies, that we act on these issues, that we act aggressively on these issues. And I'd like to see, we discussed it recently this week, we'd all like to see the actions that take place in the various meetings that go on throughout the year, we'd like to see a component be applied to the actions that have come out of this 30-party meeting. So let me briefly summarize, I don't know if we have the slides, please, for the next. Okay, so the 4 areas were climate change as number 1. And in climate change, and these are essentially an aggregation of the findings that came out of the topical areas. There were a number of components in each topical area, and this is an aggregation of those. Think of these as the main areas of focus in these 4 areas. And as the other speakers have said, we invite your comments on these areas, and we'll refine them, and they will be handled as we talked about. So the first one is in the area of climate change, which is one of the 4 topics, coordination and sharing of data. There was a strong desire, as data are collected, there are a lot of uncertainties in the data to support the models, and the models across the various nations can be better refined if those data are shared. And also a focus on the global problems such as green systems and alternative energy. These were 2 of the areas that were mentioned, but of course there are many more. Next slide, please. Second area is human spaceflight. And in this area, the support of human spaceflight exploration in low Earth orbit was highly supported. So LEO, human spaceflight, to encourage and support that regime was one of the topical areas. Secondly, welcoming enabling technologies to support the grand challenges such as energy and environment that I mentioned before. So human spaceflight support to LEO, as well as broader support to not only just exploration, but exploration for the purpose of supporting the grand challenges. Next slide. The third area was planetary robotic exploration. And the 2 areas here were, number 1, to use robotic exploration to extend human spaceflight exploration beyond where it would naturally be able to go. So in other words, think about not an either-or scenario of human spaceflight or robotic exploration, but think about the coupling and how they can be supportive of each other in their findings. And then second area was shared science and science for exploration and from exploration. So sharing the science that can support that exploration, the planning, the organizing, the goals, and then after the exploration takes place, sharing the results of that exploration. And the next area, please. And the last area was disaster management. And in the disaster management area, the first one was support Earth observation systems for disaster management, recognizing that a lot can be learned from broad area coverage and looking at disaster management from space, and also, again, focusing on that collaboration and coordination, sharing Earth observation data after it's collected for the purpose of global disaster management. When we think about space, it's always been illustrative to me to think about how much it touches our lives and what it would be like, you know, a day in the life without space. As was pointed out, there has been a military focus for space from various nations' points of view, but that continues, as well as the civil exploration, but that's broadening. And the need for collaboration, the need for cooperation to solve these global challenges has never been greater. And the 30 Heads of Space Agency Summit gives us an opportunity to leverage the connections that were made and to begin to share ideas globally, and especially as was pointed out in these 4 areas. Next slide, please. So you have a summit at IAAmail.org email address here, and we encourage your comments, your ideas in these areas and other areas. And I think we're going to move to a Q&A session now, is that right? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. You may understand that the purpose of the Academy is not to do the work of a space agency, but to provide the opportunity for a broader number of space emerging countries to be in the discussion. And as of now, in addition to the 30 head of agencies that have welcomed the declaration, there are 6 other space agencies that, after the summit, welcome as well the declaration. And there are maybe a few more to come. So the question is, what is the mechanism today for having on the same table for preliminary discussion countries that never met really before? And so the purpose of the Academy is to offer this opportunity by the way of conference, and those orientation gives the way where we are going to have our future conference in the months to come, but also the way of studies. And we are going in specific area to initiate studies to explore with an international team, including every country interested in the subject, to develop more technically the concept. So, but maybe this dream is nice, but maybe the crisis today is probably affecting the possibility of cooperation. Do you have any reaction on that crisis?
Well, in effect, the crisis is affecting everything, and we are insisting always saying that space should be out of the crisis, should be considered as a challenge, but should be considered as an item which will drive us, all of us, out of the crisis in terms of technology development, in terms of data and information. But in effect, the situation which is around the world of space, starting from NASA and ending with ourselves, is such that it is already a dream to maintain the quantity of money that we have spent in the recent years. So by sure we have to see in the future all the opportunities of cooperation, sharing costs, sharing objectives, and having the possibility then to, in certain way, to reduce the amount of money of a single nation. So the ambition of the single nation should be a little bit reduced while maintaining the overall ambition of the humanity in general and of the space agencies as cooperative agencies in the world.
I don't think the crisis should exist for space. We might think of the fact that most of the space programs are long-term, and they are at the same time long-term value-added providers. Usually we say that €1 invested in ESA brings other 10 euros in the national and European environment, for example, but on the long term, 10 to 15 years. In the same time, we should think that most of the space systems become critical infrastructure for the planet Earth. I'm thinking of the communication satellites, but also the global positioning and navigation systems, which become necessary parts of different industrial and commercial applications, and they are not working without. And on the third time, we should also think that space programs are providing technologies which, by spin-off, return to industry and to the societal applications. Space programs are different from other technology development programs because they are producing application-oriented issues and not business-oriented issues as the main purpose. And such need and the complexity and the very high level of multidisciplinarity makes space programs needed. I'm sure that none of the major space agencies will really reduce budgets for the next medium and long-term period.
I don't know if a crisis exists or not, but I do know that economic challenges exist. And I think the value of the Academy's role in bringing the people together the way that they did is to serve as not only the catalyst, as Dr. Nair said, but also as a technical representation and support and advisory group. Because the Academy does have deep technical expertise, it is not necessarily today, when you think about the kinds of problems that we face, it's not, the challenges are not necessarily in the space activities themselves. The challenges are really in what should those activities be doing to support the findings and the results that will lead to the solutions of these problems. And so I think in addition to collaboration along the area of space activities having to do with the technologies of space, there's also a great opportunity to collaborate across the solution to the problems that space represents an opportunity to learn from.
Thank you. Dr. Nye, a few months ago you were the chairman of ISRO, and you have experience also running for several years the Indian Space Agency. Do you have any comment on the subject of crisis?
Well, I think we have been concentrating in India on two aspects. One is to see that we have the standalone capability for access to space, build a spacecraft for Earth observation, communication system, and for scientific needs. But more than that, we have given thrust to the application of a space-based system for the benefit of the people. The telemedicine, teleeducation, the support to the agriculturists, fishermen, and the planners, all these have had been developed and perfected to a great extent. So I would imagine for countries which are emerging to use the space technology, even though they don't have the means by themselves, other developed countries should support them in enabling them to use the space technology for the benefit of the people. In fact, that's a model I would like to recommend for consideration. Of course, when we look at the future, there are focused themes we have identified in terms of environment and climate change, and of course the human access to space, and so on. These are some of the projects which we need. Of course, we have the technical competence in individual countries, but how to synthesize and synergize these efforts so that we have a global observation system which is standardized, which can meet almost all the requirements, not only for the resource, but all the issues related to the climate change, weather, and so on. And again, in the human access to space, of course, the space station is available for maybe 10 years. But in that period, how to really enable participation by other countries is one issue which has to be addressed. So in that context, I agree with Mr. Johnson that we have to concentrate two aspects. One is the immediate requirements, other is the futuristic requirement. There, a lot of technology initiatives will have to be taken. The academicians are well equipped to do that. But at the same time, we have to see that as we look at the problems which are occurring in different parts of the globe and how we can suggest solution to those problems. So it is a mixed approach of immediate future and the long term, and then how the academic work and the practical needs of the society can be put together. Of course, there are, as pointed out Mr. Saga said, that there is a European Space Agency who integrates activity within the Europe, and similarly India has a large portion of the population, 1/6 of the population. They have their own agencies. Chinese space program is also very vibrant. So if we ensure that all these agencies, at least once in a few years, they sit together, they share their problems and vision, then we can have a much better focused activity for the future.
Thank you. The question is, today all agencies and all nations have their own program, and this is usually pluriannual. and it's already take most of the budget. So if there are new subject to open with new partner, new player, how do we do with the current constraint of budget?
Well, I think, let me cite the example of the Chandrayaan, the moon mission which India has conceived. Yes, we have to spend quite a lot of money in realizing the mission. But what the approach what we took was, yes, India took the lead of building the main spacecraft and the launch system, whereas we had a discussion with the European Space Agency as well as the NASA, and we had a truly an international cooperative program. And at the end of that, we have shared the data with the scientists between these three agencies, and soon it will be put out in the public domain for the other users also. So this is a good model to follow. See, some country can be playing the lead role, and we can ensure that others do participate in such program. So then it becomes affordable. One doesn't have to invest totally for a program of this magnitude. Say when we talk about the Mars exploration, yes, there's a good example where perhaps the agencies should together and draw up a plan. Again, we are talking about energy from space. Can we have innovative solutions worked out right across the borders of the country, and can be made as a global theme? So these are some examples which you can consider.
Dr. Saggesi, what about the budget of Italian Space Agency?
Well, our budget at the moment is stable, which does not mean that money to reach the targets. But we feel that industry can have an economic result by the exploitation of this system. So we are then asking the industry to participate in the investment in order to exploit the result of the research. And this is demonstrating quite interesting in some fields like telecommunication, which is commercially mature, but also in Earth observation. So the feeling is that we will have in the future not only the agencies playing a major role in investing, but the same industry participating in the investment in order to get the exploitation of the results.
The idea was also to give the floor to the audience. Is there anyone in the room that would like to have a question? You are welcome.
Yes, I have a comment.
Can you come?
Can you come, sir? I am Jean-Marc Salotti.
Come here.
Thank you. I'm Jean-Marc Salotti from France. I have a comment on what has been said by Enrico Saggesi, President of the Italian Space Agency. You said that a human mission to Mars would cost about $500 billion. Well, maybe you were referring to the NASA reference architecture for human mission to Mars, because it's a complex one, and even the feasibility is not proven. So, but I personally worked on human mission to Mars, and I published a recent paper a few months ago for a new architecture, and I can tell you that it could cost much less. And I also have a presentation tomorrow morning if you want to attend the presentation. Anyway.
Then, of course, clever ideas can come on how to reduce the budget, because maybe the budget that we are conceiving today is such that it prevents us to go there. Maybe studying, profiting of the studies of many people, we could reconsider the overall mission, but still we have missing stones.
Thank you. It's 2 minutes left. Maybe it's time to ask again. Do you have any more to add? I'm not sure we can have the time to ask to give the floor for a second question, unless it is short. Is there someone having a short question? Can you give the mic?
I have two short, specific questions, very short. Two but short. One is directed to Madhavan Nair sir. I'm from India, National Institute of Technology, Bhopal. Do you see a future of a health SAT network in India, and maybe spread it out to the other developing countries. We are planning to have one health sat, but maybe we need a network health sat like we have a network of health observation satellites.
Yes, we have nucleated this health satellite program, so telemedicine program. It is growing at a very fast rate, so in due course there will be dedicated satellites for that purpose. Also, we have signed an agreement with Ethiopia to share our knowledge and expertise to spread in this region. So perhaps in due course this will become a global theme, and there could be service providers even on a commercial basis to support this.
And do you see India as a world leader of space technology in the coming future?
There are a number of leaders who will be one among them.
Thank you for making I just would like to make a short announcement. We have produced studies that we referred to at the time of the summit. And for instance, there is a publication of a proceeding of a conference to prepare the summit, the one of Nagoya. So you can, the local committee of Nagoya has prepared with JAXA and USEF proceeding for the 50th anniversary celebration symposium on climate change. And if you give your card to the IAA office, room 170 upstairs, the USEF and JAXA will be happy to, Dr. Mihaha and Kibe will be happy to provide you with the proceedings. This is the same, we have a 4 study that has been published, and we will be happy to provide you a copy of the study. Incidentally, they are online for free on our website. And the website is in the program book of this Congress. Another last information, we have tomorrow, Commission 5, that has prepared a special session, 3-6, the room TS8. And tomorrow there is 4 studies to be presented in the form of a communication and paper. So you are welcome if you want to learn a little more on our studies. Thank you, sir, and Head of Agencies, and Dr. Ray Johnson. Thank you, the audience, to participate to this meeting.
For questions, please send email to us. We will be happy to respond.